talk better now. Alright, so we got this done. Alright, so the benefits of selecting these nutrient-dense foods I'm talking about. First point, easier to control calorie intake. And like I mentioned before, it's really hard to overeat on these calorie-dense foods because by volume weight, there's a really low or really high volume weight to how many calories are in them. So, for instance, when you're eating green leafy vegetables like broccoli, which I don't even count in my nutrition plans when I create them for people, I'll just say, I'll pretty much consider them no calories because I don't want people really tracking it because for the most part, you're not gonna overeat on them. You're not gonna make a dent in your nutrition plan from eating 2 cups of broccoli or 3 cups of broccoli. But something like a sweet potato, it's really dense in carbohydrates, but it's pretty high in fiber. And it's when you're measuring it out and eating a sweet potato, it's almost impossible to eat an abundance of it just because it's going to fill you up. Now, I hate to use the Pop-Tart example again, but it's pretty easy to eat a couple Pop-Tarts. Or another example would be like children's cereal, like the really sugary cereal. If you actually look at it, like a serving's like a half a cup, and it's like 40 grams of carbohydrates or something. I mean, you could eat a huge bowl of that and put down easy 100 grams of carbs without even thinking of it. So, easier to control calorie intake, longer periods of satiation. So what I mean by that is, if you eat something like a bowl of sugary cereal, a couple hours later, I mean, it's not going to be with you. It's going to be digesting really quickly. So when you're eating a higher fiber meal, something with more nutrient density, some lean proteins, healthy fats, it's going to take longer to absorb into your body. So you're going to feel full longer. Difficulty overeating kind of goes to the other points. More essential nutrient intake. You're going to get more vitamins and minerals, more essential amino acids, essential healthy fats. That's something to think about as well. And then the greater amounts of nutrients per volume. Like I said, a lot of nutrients per the weight of the food. So the weight might not be that much, but there's a lot of nutrients packed into it. So macronutrients. Like we said, these are what make up the calorie content of your diet. Protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And you need a correct balance of this to hit your calorie requirements. We have our calorie total, whether it's to lose weight or to gain weight. And now we got to figure out what we're going to make up of that, or how we're going to get to that point. And obviously, protein, we're gonna go through everything, but you're going to need a balance of the 3. And not really low in one or not super high in the other. You're going to be looking at pretty overall balance. So, protein. Obviously, people think of protein as growth and repair, something to build muscle, all that. There is essential amino acids, meaning you need to take in a certain amount of these essential amino acids to survive. There's 8 of them, and there's 12 non-essential. There's some that are conditionally essential, meaning that under certain circumstances and special populations, certain amino acids need to be taken into the diet, but unless you have it in a disease state, that doesn't really apply. Complete versus incomplete. Any protein from an animal source is going to be a complete protein. Any from non-animal source, not necessarily is. I think soy and there's a couple of them that are pretty close to being complete plant sources. But that's why vegetarians have to be very careful that they do hit their, at the end of the day, their essential requirement for those essential amino acids. Like I said, proteins needed for growth, repair, immune function, all that stuff. Good sources: lean chicken, chicken breast, turkey breast, all fish. Then some fish we're going to get into that are going to have a lot of healthy fats like salmon, but it's another thing. Lean red meat. A lot of people are afraid of red meat, but as long as you're getting really lean cuts, you can feel free to have that. Then obviously eggs, low-fat dairy. So carbohydrates. So let's look at the first point for a second. Essential for life, but non-essential. And what I mean by that is there's no one carbohydrate that is essential for life, meaning you have to take in a certain carbohydrate in order to survive. Now, your body must have glucose for your brain and a couple other bodily functions, needs it for energy just to survive. But your body can produce enough glucose through other sources to make it non-essential. Now, I'm not saying, okay, let's everyone stop eating carbohydrates. I'm just pointing out the fact that they are non-essential. But they are for energy, and that's what you should really think of them as. And fiber. carbohydrate sources are what's going to have fiber. Fiber makes up carbohydrates. And that's really, this last point is something I want to take a little bit of time on. And no carbohydrate is inherently bad. Even sugar, for instance, isn't inherently bad because carbohydrate metabolism, no matter what carbohydrate source you take in, aside from fiber, is going to eventually be broken down to glucose. Just a matter of time. It's just digestion rates. But, like I said before, sugar, I mean, you can pound calories to that very easily because it has no nutrition density. So, obviously, you can't make up your whole diet of sugar. But, as long as you're fitting it into your calorie requirements and your carbohydrate requirements, you can have a little bit of sugar, some treats. So, what I want to point out here is, as long as you're hitting your fiber requirement of the day, and you're getting a lot of nutrient-dense foods through, your vegetables and some good quality carbohydrate sources, like I mentioned, a little bit of unhealthy carbohydrates can be fit into your diet. All right, fat. This is an essential nutrient. There is essential fatty acids, and there's saturated and unsaturated. Saturated's gotten a really bad rap recently, but you do need it for a lot of hormone functions, and a little bit of it's not bad. Normally what I'll recommend is about a third of your intake should be saturated, a third monounsaturated, and a third polyunsaturated. Polyunsaturated is one source that you've probably heard a lot about, and it's because of omega-3s and all the benefits that they offer. One thing that sometimes gets confused is not all polyunsaturated fats are omega-3s. They're actually split up between omega-3s and omega-6s. And our diet is overwhelmingly high in omega-6s just because how our animals are fed and all this stuff. So that's why it's important to supplement with an omega-3 supplement or get it from food through salmon or I put up here grass-fed free-range beef. And how that is fed, they're allowed to roam and eat grass. Their fatty acid content is different than a normal red meat. So that's another good source of omega-3s. Micronutrients. So vitamins and minerals. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this just because I feel like we're running out of time. But I just want to point out that you do need to hit them. They're called micronutrients because you need them in smaller amounts than macronutrients. But you're going to find them in almost any fruit, any vegetable, and that's where your main source is. As far as taking in supplemental form, a multivitamin might be beneficial, especially for college students. And I don't normally recommend them. It's better for you to get it through food. But if you're not getting a lot of fruits and vegetables, I'd rather see you take them in through a supplemental form than not get them at all. So that's something to think about as well. All right, so putting it all together, I want to talk about how we're going to come up with these nutrition plans while living on campus or even living off campus. On campus, there are ways to eat healthy. Now, it might not always seem that when you're walking into Willie and you see all that pizza and all that junk, but there are some healthier sources. And like we've kind of said throughout the whole presentation, look for the nutrient-dense ones. Look for the lean protein sources like chicken. I mean, almost everyone serves chicken, everyone in the food places, or fish, or, you can get a salad at almost everyone that's for the leafy vegetables. It's just, when you start tracking your calories, you're going to realize you can get a lot more bang for your buck eating those type of foods than eating, pizza and burgers and stuff like that. And then, something I want to talk about is portion control. When you go to these places that's all you can eat, it's really easy to overeat. So when you start, kind of being aware of how much you're eating, you can really kind of scale it back and kind of, look at it as portions rather than just eat until, can't move or whatever. Then eating off campus. Not all healthy food is super expensive. Yeah, fresh produce, fresh meat, that is expensive. But there are other ways to eat healthy that you can look for deals. That's always something I always say. And then buy in bulk too. If you're gonna be eating one thing a lot, buy a little bit bigger package and just split it up. The other thing is for planning meals. It's a lot easier to eat healthy when you have a plan. So if you create a nutrition plan for yourself or just write down a few meals that you want to eat throughout the week, it always is better than just going at it blind. And yeah. Some keys to success. So we have our calorie intake. We got to get to the correct amount and the macronutrient ratio for your goal. trying to keep that balance. Intake wide variety of nutrient-dense foods, like we've mentioned. Balance is key. Like, what I mean by that is you can, like I said, you can fit in some unhealthy things in your diet, but the main thing is that your majority of your diet should be healthy, nutrient-dense, high in fiber and vitamins and minerals. And then long-term dietary habits should be your focus. So don't think of it as your dieting. Think of it as like your nutrition plan or your eating habits. So it's long-term change, not short-term. And like we've mentioned, the outcome based. So if you're not seeing results, you got to make an adjustment to it. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're not losing weight, you're gonna have to lower your calories. That's what I'm saying by that. Some things to be aware of. Liquid calories. This is the biggest source of calories that you might not think about. Soda, obviously, it's not good for you, but you're getting boatloads of calories. And same with fruit juice. A lot of people think because it's nutrient dense, it's one of those things where you get a lot of vitamins and minerals, but it's a lot of calories, a lot of sugar, and it can be hard to hit your daily requirements when you're drinking a lot of your calories because it doesn't provide any fiber or any fullness. So I'd rather see you get the calories from whole food. And then avoid crash diets. Like I said, no low fat, no low carb. Try to keep it balanced. There are times when you might need that for trying to lose a lot of fat or whatnot, but for the most part, it's a lifestyle change. So, any questions on anything I've said up till this point? Nothing. Now I can look at a cool logo. Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
And that's the website when it's fixed.
Well, thanks very much, Kyle. That was awesome. I think, let's give him a hand.